On your Thursday episode of Locked On Raptors, we talk about one guy trying to make the jump to superstardom and two guys who are just trying to hang in the league. It's Swing Skills Part 2, baby. Let's go.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Thursday, September the 19th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for going on 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the bad website that sucks at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors. And of course, you can join us over on the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. It's free to join as always. And it's a great place to come hang out with the sickos who love the podcast, who love the Raptors, and are very much looking forward to a new season. That's going to be where I'm talking about games for the most part as they're happening this season. So come join us in our listener family over on the Discord. Of course, you can find the show for free wherever you get your podcast. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend on the audio apps on YouTube. It's much appreciated when you go ahead and do all of that. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we will get started here on Swing Skills Part 2, picking up where we left off on Tuesday's episode with Vivek Jacob, where we pick 3 players and we run through the skills that we think are the sort of the ones that can most improve a guy's station as an NBA player if those skills have some refinement, some growth, some development over the course of the offseason. We got 3 more guys on tap today. We're going to talk about Davion Mitchell and Ochai Agbaji, 2 really interesting guys at the back part of the rotation. And we're going to talk about the most interesting guy, the most important guy, Scottie Barnes. And we're going to do that with a lovely guy. It's Jamar Hinds, the god of the game recap from Raptors Republic. How's it going, pal?
I'm doing pretty good, and game recaps are coming again just around the corner, so we don't have to wait too long for those.
We love Jamar game recaps. Let's go. All right, let's dive in. Swing Skills Part 2. We're going to talk about Scottie Barnes off the top because he's the guy upon which the future hopes of the franchise rest. No pressure, Scottie. For me, Jamar, the swing skill here for Scottie Barnes has to be mid-range shooting. Short mid-range, long mid-range, all the mid-range. I think this is where Scottie Barnes needs to really hone in if he's going to take the jump that the Raptors have bet on him taking, that all of us are really hope he can take this coming season. You got to be a guy who can live in the mid-range and live with the shots and hit the shots that defenses are trying to funnel you towards. This is the territory of superstars. And if Scottie Barnes is going to become a superstar, he's got to start knocking down mid-range pull-ups. I think, the 3-point pull-up stuff, that feels like maybe a further off far fantasy. He was really bad as a pull-up 3-point shooter last season, just 17% on about 1 attempt a game. Not what you want. A little better as a mid-range shooter on pull-ups, 39% on pull-up 2s last season. Still not great, but kind of knocking on the door of some of the guys who he's hoping to kind of move into the zone of being contemporaries with around the NBA. What do you think about the mid-range shooting for Scottie Barnes, Jamar, as a potential swing skill here? Is that something you had in mind for him?
Yeah, that's definitely a skill, especially, big picture. If Scottie's a guy that you want to lead you in playoff series, a lot of times your game plan for different aspects of your game are taken away, but someone with a dominant mid-range game still normally flourishes. You're looking at guys like Kevin Durant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, these last playoffs, like a lot of his points came from the mid-range and was unstoppable in that aspect. And then obviously we saw what Kawhi did here. He always had that reliable mid-range game, elbow area type jumpers and things like that. So that's definitely like that kind of game separates the good from the elite. So Scottie adding that to his game would make him a more versatile player. In terms of what I would
before you jump in, Jamar, before you jump to your swing skill, I just want to drop a number on you. It's not a very encouraging number. I'll be honest with you. It's a little bit troubling. But last season, of the top 100 players in pull-up attempts per game, 2s and 3s combined,
Okay.
Scottie Barnes, you want to guess where he ranked in effective field goal percentage among the top 100 players in effective field goal percentage on pull-ups?
94th.
No, 100th. 100th out of 100. He had a 34.7% effective field goal percentage. Dragged down big time at that 17% from three. I mentioned the 39% on pull-up twos. Only 6 players in the top 100 in attempts had an effective field goal percentage under 40%. And the next worst ahead of Scottie was Ja Morant at 37%. So 2.5 percentage points better than where Scottie was at. He was by far the worst of this cohort as a pull-up mid-range shooter or a pull-up shooter, period. If you look at some of the other guys around the league, especially the pull-up twos, Luka Doncic, 46.4%, elite stuff. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a freaking machine, 52%.
Yeah.
He's a monster. Among the big wing creative types, though, I think maybe a little bit more of an attainable bar to clear here for Scottie. The guy who I look at as sort of like a high watermark of what Scottie can be is Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum last year shot 39% on pull-up twos, right where Scottie was. He, of course, shoots 36% on pull-up threes as well. To balance that out, Scottie needs to figure it out from one of those areas for sure. For both will be lovely. You got Brandon Ingram, 48% on 7 pull-up twos a game. Paolo Banchero, about 41.5%. Kawhi Leonard, 47.8%. If you're looking at those big wing types, if Scottie can creep into like the mid-40s, 43, 44, 45% this season as a mid-range guy on a bit higher volume than about 2 attempts a game, I think you're starting to look at him kind of moving in the right direction when it comes to the swing skill. It might not be a single year thing for him. This is going to be a multi-year process, but yeah, mid-range shooting, pulling up from 18 feet, it's just going to totally change what he's capable of and the sort of superstar ceiling that he might have. What is your swing skill for Scottie Barnes, Jamar?
Scottie is normally a good interior defender. You've seen him get a lot of blocks there. They like that. That's been his best place to defend and just be a weak side help, things like that. I'm pretty sure he led the Raptors in blocks per game before he got hurt. So I would want to extend that to the perimeter a little bit more because you know, the times when Scottie has had to defend on the perimeter, especially when he was dabbling in, you know, starting as a point, and sometimes he would have to guard like a Luka or something like that. And obviously, it's not the great example because who can guard Luka Doncic, but it's just something. It's just an area where Scottie would be exposed sometimes, and you know, if you want him to be this ultra versatile player, sometimes he's going to have to defend that perimeter threat and. Just, you know, lateral quicks, things like that, just having to be a little bit more aware on the perimeter. I mean, that's kind of a hard one to improve, but especially if some of that is natural in terms of just lateral quicks and things like that. But I feel like there could be a little bit of improvement there, and that would just make him more versatile. So just adding something on the defensive end.
I love the perimeter defense thing for him. I think the whole viability of the team they have right now gets a whole lot clearer and a whole lot more viable, for lack of other words to use. I need to bust out the thesaurus. If Scottie can actually be a dude you can kind of throw on the best opposing wing guy, maybe not, you know, for the full stretch of games, but for when things really matter, for if a guy is really cooking somebody and you just need that sort of break glass in case of emergency. Dude, I think Scottie's always going to be best as that sort of roaming help guy who can, you know, kind of create events on defense. But if he can go and lock up a dude on the perimeter for, you know, 5-6 minutes of an important game, that totally changes the viability of RJ Barrett on this team and makes the fit a whole lot easier. It changes the way, you know, you can kind of negotiate having Grady Dick and Emmanuel Quickley, who are maybe not the greatest on-ball defenders on the floor out there. Like, it just solves a whole lot of problems if Scottie's able to tap into that. I'm with you. I think it's a hard thing to improve. You hear a lot of talk about his hips, right? Really high hips. Like, it makes it tough for the lateral quickness stuff, but he is enormous. He's crazy long. And I think the bugaboo for him, we've talked about this plenty on the show in the past, has been Scottie Barnes really struggles to just trust his own length, right? He often is over aggressive. He gets too far up on guys, makes it too easy for blow-bys to happen. He doesn't just trust the fact that he can kind of corral guys, even if he gives them more space. He can still contest if he's giving a little bit more room in front. It'd be nice to see him kind of exert a little more control and balance as a perimeter defender. I think that's a great swing skill. And what if he just comes out and is an ace wing defender and a guy who's hitting mid-range pull-ups at a high clip? What a world that would be, Jamar. What an absolute blast we're having if that takes place. We're going to come back on the other side here, Jamar, get into Davion Mitchell, who not as important as Scottie Barnes to the grand scheme of things for sure, but it is a big year for him as it comes to prolonging his NBA career. We're going to get to that coming up in just 1 second, and what skill could make it so he stakes a claim to being a Raptor, perhaps beyond just this season. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time, the single best place to buy tickets for the sports, concerts, comedy, theater events you want to go to. It's a wonderful app. I use it all the time to go to all kinds of sporting events. I've talked about it. This summer, I went and checked out a couple baseball stadiums for the first time in Cleveland and in Pittsburgh, and I'd never been there. I don't know where to sit, what the right sight lines are, where the sun is, all of that. But because of the seat views function in Game Time, I was able to peruse those seats, figure out, where am I in the easterly quadrant? Am I going to be in the sun at this time of day? I was doing some sun mapping. It was great. And because of Game Time and the seat views, I got great seats for the games that I went to in Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Had a great old time watching baseball. It was a blast. And of course, Game Time has more features than just that. If you toggle it on, you can see all-in pricing. And so you see the entire price up front, no surprise fees at the back end checkout. Just make sure you toggle that function on. It's a very good one to have on. They have the lowest price guarantee as well. Game Time will credit you with 110% of the difference if you find tickets for cheaper in the same section and row somewhere else. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time, of course. Back at it here with Jamar Hinds from Raptors Republic, talking swing skills now for Davion Mitchell. Of course, I guess the biggest offseason addition for your Toronto Raptors. Not exactly an uproarious summer of big-time moves or anything like that. But Mitchell seems like he's going to have a shot at a rotation job and may just be the original plan at backup point guard, which I've shared my doubts about for sure. But it seems like he might get a shot there, as there aren't a whole lot of other ready-made options to go and be backup point guard. Bruce Brown, Jamal Shed, I'm sure we'll see different looks all throughout the season, but Mitchell feels like he's going to get that first look at running the second unit offense. And for me, Jamar, the swing skill, because of that, is his pick and roll playmaking. I know 3-point shooting is a thing that's going to be considered as, but it just felt too easy and too low hanging of fruit for me to say, hey, shoot threes better and you'll be great. That can apply to anybody. For me, Davion Mitchell finding a way to sort of maneuver and pick and roll, even if it's, sort of unorthodox, right? They're not necessarily running straight high pick and roll. Maybe they're getting him working out of handoffs and stuff like that. If he can find a way to be just a reliable table setting guard, that makes him a really valuable piece for this team, a team that needs more guard play and a team that needs the perimeter defense that Davion Mitchell brings to the table. It seems like maybe you agree with me. Was this your swing skill for him as well?
It was. He averaged 4 assists as a rookie. He also played almost double the minutes per game that he did last year. It's been a solid decline, so it went up from 4.2 to under 2. But this is the way that Mitchell takes away minutes from a guy like Bruce Brown, who you still don't know his future with the team, if he's going to stay the whole season or if they're going to try and find a trade for him. But this is how you give the Raptors a little bit of confidence that, hey, this guy can actually run a little bit of offense, when a guy like Scottie or Quickly is sitting, and we could, have Davion Mitchell run some pick and roll. I'd love to have.
I would love to have Donovan Mitchell running pick and roll for this team. Yes,
right. So no, that's the way he stays on the court. Obviously, we'll save the shooting for another guy that we're going to talk about. So, and I feel like he's improved a little bit more, like season by season. He shot 36% from 3. So for a guy like Mitchell, I think that's passable. He doesn't have to be like a knockdown 40% 3-point shooter, but if he can play make and that gives guys like Scottie and quickly a little bit more rest, I think that would be the more valuable skill for the Raptors off the bench.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think, look, I think there you can kind of look at his history in the NBA and sort of, you know, use the numbers and sort of shape them how you want to sort of form whether you feel optimistic or pessimistic about him actually doing this. But just some of the numbers that kind of inform what he can do as a guy with the ball in his hands. Number one, like I do think the number one most important thing for any creative ball handler to have is a pull-up shot. And that's not been a thing he's been especially good with over the course of his NBA career, especially as a three-point guy. 32% last season on pull-ups, very, very tiny volume, just half an attempt a game. So it's like almost nothing to go on. But 32% is like almost sort of knocking on the fringe of respectable as a pull-up three-point shooter. If he can kind of up that to like 33, 34, maybe 35 on like 1 or 1.5 attempts a game, that's a big time ask for a guy who's never been a three-point shooter. This is like a swing skill that is maybe not the most likely thing to come to pass here, but I think that would go a long way to sort of helping him mitigate the thing I talked about a couple weeks ago when I dug into Davion Mitchell and sort of, what his season was going to hold. The thing that I came away with was just he has such a hard time gaining separation when he's using a pick, right? He can't really turn the corner on guys. Everyone's going under on him. And so,
Right.
And he was doing a lot of pick and roll action with like, Domantas Sabonis, guy, like a not super spacey big. And so there's like 2 layers of defense in front of Davion Mitchell anytime someone's setting a screen for him, because no one cares about that pull-up three-point threat. I do think there's maybe a way you can kind of work him with Kelly Olynyk a bit and have Kelly pop as opposed to roll, take away one layer of that defense maybe and kind of give Mitchell a better shot. Ultimately, like there's some really encouraging stuff in Mitchell's shot profile, especially as a 2-point guy over the years, that makes you feel good if he can start to get to those twos on his own. Shot 75% at the rim last season, extremely good, very high end in the NBA among like all players in the guard cohort. He shot better than 55% from 2 overall in his last 2 seasons, 59% 2 seasons ago. Like there's a guy who can score inside the arc in here somewhere. If there's just like a little smidge of a pull-up threat to him, coupled with a little bit more of a spacing element in the bigs he's working with, that's where that dribble handoff stuff maybe comes in. Maybe it helps him get turn the corner a little more effectively than just running straight pick and roll. Maybe there's something there for him. It's tough though, right? Like it's a hard thing to get good at, especially when you've not really been asked to do that for the last couple seasons. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely, because a lot of Sacramento's offense was just get it into Sabonis somehow and make him create from there. And then Fox would be your secondary playmaker. And like I said, his minutes had been going down from his rookie season to sophomore to the third season. So it's like his minutes will probably be roughly the same, to be honest, like around 15, 16 minutes per game. But still, with the different players you're playing with, you probably need to be a little bit more versatile. And yeah, a guy like playing with a guy like Sabonis is definitely a luxury. It allows you for a lot of just catch and shoot opportunities as opposed to creating offense on your own. So that's how his 3-point percentage has went up. But yeah, if I'm not even really hoping for him to, when it comes to 2-point finishing at the rim in terms of 2-point makes, but mid-range game, I don't expect anything because I don't really want him taking any mid-range shots. But if he could just find open threes through other players and then on pick and roll opportunities, playing with Kelly, like you said, is a great idea so that, pick and pop, take away some of the bigs that might defend Mitchell at the rim, who has finished well at the rim. But yeah, all in all, if you could use those pick and rolls to create for others, I think that would be a valuable skill for the Raptors.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe there's like, look, not huge volume again here because there's not a lot of volume for anything Mitchell did last season because he didn't play a ton, but 49% as a long mid-range shooter back in 2022-23, 47% last year. Like he's been a good long mid-range shooter. Like maybe that gives you the optimism he can take that one step further out and start knocking him down from the top of a screen and roll action, just to kind of give defenses that one little second of hesitation of, should we chase him over? Like, again, it's going to take a lot to change his reputation and change the scouting report, but we're talking about a pretty lofty swing skill goal here, and it's going to take a lot to do it, right? The catch and shoot stuff, that would have been a swing skill too. That still is. Like, can he sustain what he did last year? We shot 36% overall, 37% on catch and shoots. That's a big question. We'll see, but I think the pick and roll playmaking stuff, if he's looking for a regular carved out role on this Raptors team, that's going to be what gets him there, more so than even the catch and shoot stuff, because they got plenty of dudes who can catch and shoot. Right. We're going to come back on the other side here. And actually, one last little positive note of optimism. As a pick and roll ball handler last season, Mitchell, 1.1 possessions a game, so barely anything, but 0.96 points per possession, 77th percentile in the league per NBA.com, like upper quarter. Again, teensy tiny sample, can barely take anything from it, but if you're looking to squint and find reasons for optimism, that is one. We're going to come back on the other side here. Ochai Agbaji, he might be playing to stay in the NBA this year. What swing skill is going to help him do it? We'll get to that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the #1 sportsbook in North America, which, of course, you've heard us talk about a whole lot here on this podcast. Well, we got something a little different for you now. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. So you can watch all those football games. And of course, while you're watching those games, if it's something you're into, you can go to FanDuel and put a little money down on what the games are going to behold for you. You got the over-unders, you got the spreads. You can tell I very much bet on football all the time here with my obvious knowledge of how to do it. But FanDuel can help guide you through all of that. Of course, futures bets on the NBA season, awards winners, who's going to win the championship, all that stuff is available for you at FanDuel as well. So visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook, that the official podcast of, or official sportsbook, that is, of the Locked On Podcast Network. Back at it here with Jamar Hinds. Got a game recap here, talking swing skills, and we're going to talk about a guy now whose swing skill may or may not determine whether or not he's in the NBA beyond the next season or two. It's Ochai Agbaji. And look, I have not really been talking about Agbaji much this offseason. I've not really been speaking about him through the lens of him being a core contributing rotation piece for this team. He probably comes in as like the 8th or 9th guy in the pecking order, maybe 10th, based on what he did at Summer League as a third-year guy looking totally lost at sea. I'm not super optimistic we're going to see Ochai carve out a spot. I think there's a lot of competition at his position with Jacoby Walter coming in and Grady Dick surely going to get a whole lot of minutes at the 2 this season. I don't think his defense is so good, so breathtakingly incredible that it's going to play him onto the floor when his offense is as grim as it was last year. What for you is the swing skill, Jamar? And is it the very obvious, please just hit some damn shots?
Yeah, this one is super obvious. It's shooting. It's 3-point shooting in particular. I mean, he's shown defensive flashes, but to be a 3-and-D guy, you have to make threes.
Yep. It's kind of a big part of it.
Yeah. It's kind of half of the job. But as a Raptor last season, he only shot 21% from deep. So basically, basically a lot of it was 4-on-5 offensively. And that's just not going to cut it. In Summer League, he was just taking all different types of shots, which is not what you want for him in an ideal situation in game. You basically just want him to probably stick to the corner 3, maybe above the break, but maybe some cutting and catching some lobs, but the 3-point shot has to be there. And it's gotten worse as his career has gone along. In Utah, as a rookie, he actually shot 35% from 3. I'd be happy for Ochai to shoot 35% from 3, but that's taken a serious dip as his career has gone along with his free throw shooting, just the field goal percentage in general. It just everything's taken a nosedive. I don't know if he's changed his shot because he's even back at Kansas, he seemed to be a more reliable shooter than that. So I don't know if he's changed his shot for the worse or anything, but it's definitely you've got to knock down open shots because in this day and age, playing 4-on-5 is such a disadvantage on a team that already, Quickly is your most reliable shooter. And then after that, it's kind of like, and great, and you hope Grady would be too. But after that, it's kind of hit or miss sometimes. Like even with a guy like Scottie, who's his 3-point shot kind of declined over the season. Started really well, but even his declined over the season. So you want more reliable options on the court, and especially with them drafting Jacoby Walter, who also has a shooter reputation, and you would hope he would help you on that situation. That could leave a guy like Ochai on the outside looking in, and that could make or break whether he's on this team, long term or not. So hope he's in the gym getting up like 500 threes a game, or however they say. Like Kat says he takes 1,500 threes. I don't know if he took that much during the playoffs, but I hope he's taking that many because it's definitely a sore part of his game that definitely needs improvement.
Yeah, man. And I wish I was more optimistic that it was going to turn around. But if you look back through his career, as an above the break 3-point shooter, it's just never been there. He's basically always been a corner guy or nothing. Shot 48% from the corners as a rookie, 29% above the break. 44% with the Jazz last season to start the year, was red hot from the corners, 24% above the break. Last year, 26% with the Raptors from the corners, totally dropped off there. I would expect it'll bounce back somewhat, playing, just kind of getting better looks on a team that has healthier players and all of that. 26% from the corners feels extremely low, even for a guy who I don't think has a ton of shooting talent. But again, 19% above the break with the Raptors last year. Like, I question the value of a guy who can only hit threes from a set defined area of the arc, right? And that changes how defenses are going to approach it. It makes it harder to, sort of have, harder to have driving lanes because the help is coming off that corner with Ochai so liberally. It just makes it more difficult for everybody. It's a challenge. Yeah.
Bruce Bowen only made corner threes, really.
That's true. Ochai Agbaji is Bruce Bowen. You heard if you were here first from Jamar Hinds. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. There is some stuff that the Raptors were able to do with him last year that was interesting. They got him to the rim a ton. He shot 50% of all of his shots at the rim last season. That was 98th percentile per clean the glass. That is great. But how do you continue to get him to the rim? It's probably by him sort of achieving more gravity, right? I think that's got to be a big part of it, right? Like it's just, you're not going to be able to continually get him moving to the rim in a cramped spacing environment if it continues the way it has with him. Super duper inefficient last year. I do think sort of the one thing he does once in a while do that flashes a little bit of intrigue is he can put the ball on the deck and get to the rim and score. Like that's the thing he's done. 1 or 2 dribbles, he can kind of get there. But again, that's not happening all that often if you're never seeing closeouts, right? Like if he can start to garner some closeouts, then great. He can start to do that, but it's going to be a long time until teams care about Ochai Agbaji enough as a shooter to start actually closing out hard. He's got to start that process this season. Otherwise, it could not be a very long time for him left in the NBA. It's a bummer. He seems like a great dude. We're rooting for Ochai, of course, but it's got to be a lot better than it's been, because if not, it's just not going to work on a team that needs shooting. And his defense is it's not like great shakes. It's not world-changing defense where it's like, oh God, it's like Matisse Thybulle, where who cares if he can't shoot? His defense is so valuable on the floor. We got to have it out there. He does some nice stuff. He blocks shots well for a 6'5" guard and all of that, but he got to do more on offense to justify having him out there on the floor for whatever he brings defensively.
Let me talk.
What is your sort of? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I was just gonna. When you're even talking about getting to the rim and closeouts, they wouldn't work properly. You have to remember too. Yes, he finished well at the rim, but who is he playing with? Because Jakob was out a lot of that second half, and so was RJ. So if that's the thing you can do, like there are already guys on the team. Like if you're playing with them, that wouldn't be your role. That would be RJ's role. We've seen how successful he's been with the Raptors and just straight attacking the rim, bully ball style. So you wouldn't even want two guys like Ochai to also be on the court with RJ. That's kind of redundant. So you would want Ochai to hopefully be better at spacing the court in terms of taking that corner three or something like that. So I feel like he saw a lot more minutes with a guy like Kelly Olynyk instead, which is more viable when it comes to driving, but can't always be Kelly there to save you in terms of spacing. You got to be able to space the court yourself.
100%. Yeah. Like totally think that his minutes more or less have to be tethered to Kelly Olynyk. I don't think there's that many circumstances where him and Jakob Poeltl on the floor together make a ton of sense. It's just like not enough shooting at all. And so, yeah, if you're tethered to the 6th or 7th man on the team who himself has his own issues defensively, like, yeah, it seems like maybe that 50% clip of shots attempted at the rim is a little inflated by the guys he was playing with. And it's not like they were winning any games or doing anything effective when he was getting all those shots at the rim either, right? So, yeah, it's a tough set of circumstances here. I'm rooting for him again. Like, he seems like a wonderful guy. But it's a big time season here for Ochai Agbaji. And if the swing skill of hitting shots once in a while doesn't come through, it's not going to be long until he's out of the rotation and worse than that down the line as well. Anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
Not at the immediate moment, but preseason's around the corner. I believe media day is like the first day of October or October 2nd at the latest. I can't remember the exact date, but that means preseason games are around the corner. That means game recaps are around the corner and some previews and things of that nature. So stay tuned. At this time next month, I will be in full swing.
We love it. Everyone go check out all Jamar's stuff. You can find me at Woodley Sean on the Bad website. You can find the Discord, link in the description of the podcast. Come hang out. We'd love to see you in there. It's free to join, as always. And, of course, follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Go to YouTube, subscribe over there. It's always appreciated. Go make your second listen of the day Locked in NBA as we're getting ready for the season over there and the rotating cast of hosts on that show. Doing a great job of teeing all that's coming up this NBA season. Win totals, awards, picks, previewing each team. It's all going on at Locked On NBA. We'll be back again on Friday. I'm going to rock solo. I'm going to go through some stats to monitor for your Toronto Raptors throughout the upcoming 2024-25 season. Until then, though, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye.
It's been a while since I've seen it. No improvement, though.